I'm coming out. I want the world to know. Got to let it show. The year was 1980, and Diana Ross was number one for, I think, about 9 weeks with I'm Coming Out. I was 15 years old, going on 16, and I knew that that was my song. That song spoke to me. I discovered the Zebra Lounge from a couple of friends who were also coming out. As I said, the year was 1980, and one Saturday night I decided I'm going to make that move. So I put on my clothes, and I decided I was going to catch a cab to the Zebra Lounge. Mind you, I lived on Page, which wasn't very far from Olive, but I had to catch a cab. So, in doing that, the cab arrived. I sat there for a bit. The driver said, "So are you getting out or what?" And I finally got out. Entered the door, there was a lady named Miss Edith, known as Miss Edith. She took I think it was about $5 then. Took my $5 and asked me, "Baby, how old are you?" I said, "I'm 21. She said, "No, you not." She said, "I better not see you drinking anything." And she didn't have to worry about that because I don't drink anyway. As I entered the door, though, as I gave her my money, what song was playing? I'm coming out. I want the world to know. So I knew this was my night because this was my song. And what I didn't know was that the rest of my life would be about discovery. And what I discovered, like in 1987, was that even though I found myself, what I believed at that time to be, becoming a part of a welcoming community in terms of the LGBTQ community, it was also a divisive one. So divisive that in 1987, there was a group of us who started a social group called Chain Reaction Incorporated, because we wanted to develop spaces for us, because we didn't see those spaces when we went to other places. I remember there was a bookstore on Vanderbilt, I think called Our World 2. And this may be kind of hard for some of you millennials to understand, but there was a time when, and especially in terms of porn or LGBT or gay magazines, pictures of black men were not there, or they were very, very few of them. So I also discovered that if we were going to see ourselves, we had to make that possible. We had to create those spaces and create those avenues for celebrating who we were. The year was 1989, and at that time, Blacks Assisting Blacks Against AIDS Incorporated was founded by Virgil Granberry, who was an employee of the St. Louis City Health Department. I actually got involved because I have this shirt and tie on now, but I was really a club head and pretty popular on the dance floor. And I didn't know Virgil, but Virgil knew of me. So Virgil came to me and said, everybody knows you. You come out here on Saturdays, you're dancing, and you would be the perfect person to help us spread the word about using condoms and what have you. Because also at this time, what we heard, particularly in the black male gay community, was that if you wanted to avoid HIV and AIDS, don't have sex with white men. That's what we heard. Little did we know at the same time that there were several black men who were contracting HIV and AIDS. And Virgil had the foresight to see that we need to become proactive and do something about this disease. So thus he and I talked, and And he hired me part-time to work as a health, what he called at that time, a education coordinator to help spread the word around HIV and AIDS. Got my training from the American Red Cross, who was doing a lot of training at that time in terms of, it's particularly in the African American community through their African American HIV AIDS training. So had that discovery. Fast forward, about 2 years after Virgil and I met, and he started Baba. He passed away. Found myself in the position of continuing the work that I realized at that time was very, very important, because no one was talking to our people. No one was talking to us. When we talk about images and trying to convince folks to protect themselves, most of the images that were available were of white men. So I discovered again that we had to create spaces for ourselves, or create something for ourselves. 1990 to about 1992, in our effort to have our voices be heard, a group of us started a newsletter called Snap. I have copies over here, and I'm going to make sure Stephen gets copies so we can add this to the collection. So for 2 years, you know you guys can't see it here, but on a word processor, and going to, I think Kinko's was around then, going to Kinko's, making copies and what have you, we distributed Snap. But it was our way of creating something that would allow us to speak, that gave us a voice. At that same time, I discovered that nationally, not only us here in St. Louis were we concerned in trying to develop a voice for ourselves as black gay men, there were other brothers across the country who were doing the same thing. Brothers like Essex Hemphill and Joseph Bean, who wrote the book In the Life and talked about our stories. And later on, people like James Hardy, who wrote B-Boy Blues. Also during this time, we started an annual festival in Forest Park. That festival was known as the B-Boy Festival. And for those of you who don't know what B-Boys are, this was during the early part of the hip-hop culture. And B-Boys are those guys who, are into the hip-hop music, and they were doing the dance and the break dancing and spinning and what have you. Some of those guys were gay. And so thus the title for our festival in the book, which also explained this whole culture of the B-boy mentality and how, in terms of, men having sex with men and the being DL or down low about it. This was all before it became so popular to talk about being on the DL. I think, if I recall, we did the B-Boy Festival in Forest Park near Wells Drive, because that's where we were hanging out. That was a space that we, and I say we, black, gay, and lesbian people, on Sundays, just about every Sunday, you could count on us being there in that park. So we knew that would be a good spot to have the festival so we could reach the people, engage with people, and what have you. It became very, very popular. And it was actually a group of lesbians who approached me at the time, because this was still doing my work at Baba. And they were saying that, we don't have a Black Pride here in St. Louis. At this point, Black Pride in D.C. was up and running. And I think that, because I know they were the first, and they were also the longest in terms of their history. So they said, why don't we create a Black Pride in St. Louis? Because the B-Boy Festival is our closest thing to having a Black Pride. And so we did. And we discovered that was 1999. when Black Pride started, and it is still going today. Before that, I kind of skipped a year, we also discovered, again, trying to create spaces for ourselves and discovering places in the community. There was an organization, I didn't have anything to do with it in terms of creating it. This one I didn't. But it was called Love Our Children Incorporated. They became a 501c3 organization. And at that time, their primary purpose was holding events to raise money to pay for funerals of people who died from HIV and AIDS. So again, we were trying to take care of ourselves. 1993, there was another social group that started called Umoja. And it was a community of African-American lesbians and gays, which had diverse backgrounds. There were teachers, lawyers. Actually, some of you may know Rudy Nickens, who was asked to be here tonight, but had some family issues and couldn't make it. But that's how he and I met, was through Umoja, and he became my mentor. Because again, what I discovered was that no matter how well educated you were or how much money you had, if you were Black and if you happened to be gay or lesbian, you still wanted to connect with your people. You know, you wanted to bond. It was important to have that. And Umoja gave us that. And I can't recall how long it lasted, but we would have meetings and potlucks at each other's homes and try to plan events and what have you. In terms of, I want to talk a little bit about how we met each other. When I say we, I'm talking again about Black gay men, how we met and interacted, because that was a big part of my discovery, a big part of my life in terms of being Black and gay here in St. Louis. There was an area that we used to call the Beat. And the Beat was in Grandel Square, right where the health department used to be near Samuel Shepherd, not very far from, oh, I have 1 minute? Wow, 10 minutes is quick. Okay, not very far from the bathhouse. And I discovered that guys were cruising there and meeting each other and hooking up. And it was all good, clean fun until something called crack came along, and because of that, it became pretty dangerous because people were getting robbed and beat up and what have you. So the Beat didn't last very long. I think it started to go down when the Riverfront Times did a story on the Beat. So after that, everybody knew about it. Yeah, I don't know our secret. So that was that. Real quick, only got 1 minute left. Discovered Club 747, which was formerly the Spirits Club, also the Spirits Club. 747 was a welcoming space, particularly for Black lesbians and some Black men. 747 was also the sponsors of the Father's Day picnic that happened every Father's Day weekend for Black LGBT people. Before I end, I want to say this. Being Black and gay in St. Louis is also about learning to navigate your way in white spaces. And that's not just in the LGBT community. I'm talking overall, in our city overall. Because unfortunately, we are a city divided in some aspects. And yeah, so it's about learning to navigate your way in that discovery. And even at 52 today, I'm still coming out. Thanks.